Today on After Effects Test Drive, we're going to take a look at KBar. KBar is a customized toolbar for your After Effects workspace. So in After Effects, if you've been following any of my previous tutorials, you may have noticed the row of icons at the top of my workspace. That is KBar. So what is it essentially? Really what it is shortcuts, graphical icon-based shortcuts for almost anything you can perform a function in After Effects. And the great thing about this tool is it's highly customizable. As you can see with my toolbar here, these are all icons that I created myself and imported them into the KBar toolset. All of these icons I am offering available for free on my website, so stay tuned for the link as to where you can find them. Now there used to be an older script that I used to use extensively. It was in all my workspaces called FT Toolbar, and this is it here, and these are the icons. I think most of these I created, some of them were provided. It did the same thing that the new KBar does. The only difference is this wasn't quite as customizable as KBar is now, and you didn't have the options of colors, and the icon size was limited. But essentially it did perform the same function in that it is a icon-based shortcut for a lot of things you want to do in After Effects. So when you install it, it is a script, but it's an extension script. So it's under Window Extensions, it's in the flyout menu here, under KBar. And this is likely, when you first install it, you'll have an empty toolbar. And it tells you right away, there are no toolbars available. Go to KBar settings and add some toolbars. So here we go. Here is the interface. Very simple, add a toolbar. There you go. Name the toolbar. How about my first toolbar? Okay, and there we go, and still nothing new because we got to add a button. So we'll add our first button. Up comes a flyout menu here, and it's giving us 7 options of what kind of button that we can create, and we're going to go through them in order. We have the ability to have an icon for an effect, a preset, an expression, a menu item, an extension, a script file, or a scriptlet. So with Apply Effect, what we're doing here is we're going to create a shortcut to any After Effects effects that we've got loaded onto our system. So let's drag this window over beside my Effects and Presets window. So let's say I perform the function of applying a Bezier warp on a daily basis, and it's something I want to access all the time. So it's asking for the effect name that it's going to look for that's loaded in our effects palette. So we'll start typing Bezier, and there it pops up in our list, populating our list. Click on that, and now it's going to invoke the Bezier warp effect. And if we just type in here under description, Bezier warp, and just say OK at this point, you'll see what has created is it created its own customized icon just using the letters of the effect. Now if I move this back over to the side, I select my shape layer here, and I hover over this. The description that I just typed in, Bezier warp, is what pops up when we hover over the effect to remind us what that button's function is. So now if I click on this, it will add a Bezier warp effect. Go over to Effect Controls, and you can see the Bezier warp is now applied. So now if I want to start moving my warp around, there we go. Okay, let's say I'm happy with that. That's fine. Let's say I do that on a daily basis. I've saved myself a little bit of time rather than going into the effects palette, digging through, finding the Bezier warp effect. It's right there. It's on top of my toolbar. It's always handy for me. Okay, let's go back. We can make this better. We have the ability now, we see it in our list under the My First Toolbar. We click on the pencil icon, we can edit this. Okay, so if we want to have more of a graphic representation of these icons, we can certainly do that by clicking on this icon button. It opens up another window that has a drop-down menu to change. Instead of just being a text label, which is what this had defaulted to, we can choose to select icon. and up pops a very large list of all of the Font Awesome icons that are available out in the community for free. So these have been integrated into this tool, and we can select any one of these that might be applicable to Bezier warp. I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to figure out what would look like a warp effect. We'll just pick one for now. Let's say that looks kind of warpy. And then we hit OK, and OK again. And there you go. We have a little cloud representing our Bezier warp. I have no idea why that would represent Bezier warp. We're just going through this quickly. Okay. But we can improve it once again even further. Let's say, for example, that I'm planning on having a whole row of effects, but I also want to include some scripts and some actions, that sort of thing, along the same toolbar. It might help to organize them better if they were colorized based on what kind of action they are. So if I go in and edit this once again, click on the icon, there is an additional option at the bottom here, which is pick color. And it comes up with a color dialog box that, let's say we want all of our effects to be red. So we choose red for that color, say OK a couple times, and there our Bezier warp cloud is red. That further helps us to be organized, so I can look at my toolbar at a glance and I know anything that's red is an effect, and it keeps things neat. Now let's say that on a daily basis I always use a particular preset background for whatever it is I'm working on. So we add another button here. So let's go to the next one down, apply a preset. In this dialog window, it's asking for what the .ffx, say that 3 times fast, where that file is. And so with the browse function, we point to that ffx preset, and let's say it's blocks backgrounds, for example. And we give it the description, blocks BG. That will work. Go into icon, pull this down to icon, and well, these look like blocks. That'll work. And I'll choose a different color because this is a preset, not an effect. So I'm keeping things organized. We'll make it orange. Say OK a couple of times, and there you go. Now if we want to invoke that action, all we need to do is hit our background and select our block background. And there you go. Let's change the colors there so they're a little more... Alright, so say that's my theme. Once again, it's something I go to on a daily basis. I might want to keep it up there on my toolbar. Alright, so for the next item, we want to add another button. We're going to apply an expression. Let's say, for whatever reason, we'd like to use a particular wiggle expression all the time. So our next option is to set an expression. Select that. We'll give it a description, and that will be wiggle. And here we type in the expression. So wiggle is always a pretty easy one to remember. We'll set the parameters to 5, 10, which obviously can always be changed. And then we're going to change the icon, but this time we're going to do something different. So we had text label, we had icon, but now we have this third option, and this is available in all 7 of the button options, whether it be an effect, a preset, a script. You have these 3 options for icons. So this one is a PNG or an SVG file that when we click that, it asks us where that particular icon is on our system. So let's browse for it. And I had created one for wiggle. There we go. And say OK a couple times. And there you have the wiggle icon now in our toolbar. So if we now select our shape layer, choose a property such as position that we want to wiggle, and then choose wiggle, it applies that expression. If I do a quick little RAM preview, I'll just turn off the background for a second. So there you go, the wiggle expression at your fingertips. Great. Okay, now turn this back on. Moving forward, we're going to add one more button. This time it's going to be a menu item on the 4th one down. And this can be any menu item that exists on the After Effects interface. This is a good place for you to put in menu items maybe you don't go to every single day, but they're handy to have there when you need them. There are items that don't have keyboard shortcuts. And even though it's grayed out here, things like exponential scale, convert expression to keyframes, that sort of thing, those would be good to create buttons for and leave up in your toolbar. So let's say in this example I want to create a shortcut command for convert expression to keyframes. And you see as I start typing, it pops up on the bottom of the list here. We're going to say yes to that one. And we'll give it the description that's going to appear in the hover description. Expression to keyframes. Click on the icon. And we'll just choose a standard icon that it doesn't really matter for this demonstration, but let's just say it's a speech bubble. Pick a color. It'll be a different color because this is now a menu command. Let's make our menu commands purple in this instance. Say OK. And there you go. Now I'm going to go to my shape layer, go to my position, and click on the position and select the expression to keyframes button I've just created. And there you go. It has now created keyframes for that wiggle expression. Now the next button I want to create is going to be an extension. And when you open up the window, it creates a flyout menu here of the extensions that you have loaded on your system. So let's say I turn to frame.io, but not something that I want to have open all the time. This would be a handy place for it. So select frame.io, give it the same description, choose an icon. I actually made a frame.io icon, so I'm going to browse for that. And there it is. And say OK. And OK again. And now I have the frame.io interface at my fingertips, where I can sign in here and then work with frame.io. Let's add another button. We're going to run a script file. So let's say there's a script I turn to all the time, but I don't want to leave it docked and open in my workspace. And there's one I do turn to quite often, and that is save a compass project. Click on icon, and we'll just once again select a generic icon. Actually, we need to give it a color. Let's go back. We'll pick a color, and we'll go green this time for extensions. Say OK twice, and there you go. Now, when my comp is selected, I can call up this interface, and I can save this particular composition as a project. It's a great script. It's also available on AEscripts. One more button. Run a scriptlet. So a scriptlet is a small piece of script that people will write to invoke certain actions. There is a handy one called center composition. And you can get that and other great scriptlets from Kyle Martinez's website. So here's center composition. Take this script, copy it, and put it into the scriptlet dialog field. Say OK. And I'm going to close down the KBar settings momentarily. And as you can see, my composition, let's say I've moved my composition around, and I select center composition, and that's exactly what it does. Might be something I want to go to every day. Who knows? So there you go. We've created our first toolbar with the 7 different types of buttons available. It's also handy that it can adjust to whatever interface layout that you're working with. I can take this KBar and move it. Say I want it over here. It'll stack differently. If I want to place it here beside and narrow it up so it's now a stack. Move this over. So now these are available here. That's however you want the interface to look. And of course you have the ability to save and export your toolbars and import toolbars. So in the KBar settings, you go over to settings, import toolbars, and I'll import the toolbar that I'm used to using. There it is. It pops back up. And I'll explain what I've done here My green icons are effects that I go to fairly often. Blue are expressions, and yellow are menu functions that I use. And red is a script I run quite often. What I've also done, if you pull down on the pull-down menu on the tab, you can create multiple toolbars. So you're not limited to just putting everything into one toolbar. So I've got an expressions toolbar, which are the expressions that I use fairly often: bounce and bounce with a throw, wiggle and jiggle, that sort of thing. And I've created a third toolbar called scripts, and these are the scripts that I turn to quite often. Just helps to keep me organized, and scripts are a really good thing to have, particularly if you have a lot of scripts loaded. And if you wanted to, you could pretty much have everything. I did this just as a test to see how many I could throw at it. I think it would have kept on going on forever. So there doesn't seem to be any limitation in the amount of buttons that can be used in this tool. So if you want to work with that many, that's up to you. One last look at the settings. This is where you add an additional toolbar. If we go over to settings, you'll see that we have a slider control for the button size. Really, really handy. So that's something that can really fit whatever workspace layout we've designed. In addition, button spacing works in much the same way. Anyway, that's KBar. Check it out. See you next time.